This is the IA800 action camera from Izeeker, which takes first place for the most English-adjacent sounding company name. So, good job. And there's just no sugarcoating it. This camera is going to have a lot of deal breakers for a lot of people, and I respect your time, so we'll talk about the potential deal breakers first and the things that aren't so bad later on in the video. And deal breaker number 1 is the microphone. Here's a mic test using the built-in microphone of the camera. If you listen very closely, you'll hear nothing. The inbuilt mic of this camera stopped working on day 2. On day 1, it wasn't great and was extremely quiet to begin with, so when it did work, it wasn't much better than its current state, where it just doesn't work at all. I tried adapting USB-C microphones, a USB-C mic adapter, and an external mic from another action cam, but had no luck. The mic on this camera is just no good, no matter how you slice it. This camera has a front-facing screen, and I would say that this makes it handy for vlogging, but the lack of any usable microphone pretty much kills that plan. And as for potential deal breaker number 2, the battery system on this camera is bad. Really bad. This camera, when recording its supposed 6K files, will chew through a battery in around 15 to 20 minutes of use. Luckily, the camera comes with 2 batteries, but unluckily, they're both difficult to charge with the included charger, as they just don't like to make contact with the charging leads. The batteries are also not a good fit for the camera, meaning they fit loose, and they don't always make contact with the battery leads in the camera. The button to turn on the camera requires a long press of Herculean might, so sometimes I just don't know if I'm holding the button long enough, or pressing it hard enough, or if the battery just needs to be taken out and reseated, which makes me nervous to shoot any video of importance because I'm afraid the battery might jiggle loose mid-recording. But aside from those 2 major issues, admittedly the camera is somewhat okay, and it can record pretty good video for a generic action cam. The camera specs claim 6K, but I have my doubts on that, which I will be covering later on in this video. As for now, here are some sample shots at various resolutions and frame rates with this camera. This camera can record up to 240 frames per second in 720p, and honestly, I don't think the image looks too bad and makes for some pretty epic slow motion video. Here are some focal range tests. This camera has 2 modes of electronic image stabilization, standard and super. Here's a shot of me walking with EIS off. And here I'm walking the same path with EIS standard turned on. And here I'm walking the same path with EIS super turned on. Here's a driving time-lapse, and time-lapse on this camera works as expected. This camera can be plugged into your PC and double as a USB webcam. I've got it plugged into the PC via a USB cable now, and this is what the video is going to look like. However, keep in mind that you are going to need to use an external mic based on the microphone problems that I talked about earlier. You can download an app from the Play Store called U2, which will allow you to control this camera's functions over Wi-Fi. So as I mentioned before, Izeeker claims that this camera can shoot in 6K at up to 30 frames per second. However, a lot of these generic action cams make bogus claims on the resolutions and frame rates that they produce, and at best, most of the time, the video is just over-sharpened, upscaled 1080 video. With this camera, I recorded the exact same shot in 6K 30, 4K 30, and 1080 30, so I can compare the footage. And to my surprise, 6K actually does look better than 4K and 1080. But even though 6K is the best mode for this camera, I think 1080 actually looks better than its 4K mode. Maybe it's just my imagination, but let me know what you think. And again, the 6K is the best looking mode for this camera, but how does it stack up against a name brand camera? Here I recorded the same shot side by side with the Insta360 One RS 4K edition. The Insta360 definitely has a wider field of view, but I think the Insta360's 4K video looks a lot better than the Izeeker's 6K. Even when I punch in on the Insta360 to fake a field of view that is similar to the Izeeker, the Insta360 still beats the Izeeker's supposed 6K image. Accessories included with this camera is the usual mix and match of mounting hardware that is included with most generic action cams. As for my final opinion of this action camera, well, personally, I can't recommend it. There are just too many flaws that should have never made it past the design phase into the final production of this camera. I would say that despite its microphone issues, due to its decent video quality, it could be used as a camera for collecting B-roll footage, but the battery issues just make it too unreliable and unstable even for that. Anyway, I hope I've given you enough information to come to your own conclusion whether or not this product will work for you. Thanks for watching, that's it for now, and I'll see you next time.